Thank you very much. It's not a bad trick if you're going to be a speaker to at least take something from the earlier speakers. You blend it in, it makes it look like you've been paying attention. So I want to just add that the only thing scarier standing up here speaking to all of you is having to follow Evan and Debbie. Drawing another thing from Evan, even though I do have the hat and the beard, I really feel that this is a speech that I need notes for. I speak a lot regularly, sometimes 3-4 times a week, but it's usually about something I'm very familiar with and very comfortable with. When Rabbi New asked me to talk about my journey to Chassidus and through Chabad Chassidic, that was a real challenge for me. I learned an enormous amount from it, so if Chassidus is all about learning, just having to prepare for the speech was a whole experience in learning. And I have a feeling Rabbi New kind of had that in mind from the beginning. But let me begin. So I'd like to begin with the second chapter of Tanya, which is the, of course, magnum opus of the Alter Rebbe. The first line in the second paragraph says, "V'nefesh ha'shenis b'Yisrael hichelek Elokam mimal mamish," which translated means the second soul of the Jew is truly a part of God above. Of course, the other soul they're talking about is the animalistic soul. But what this told us from the very beginning, or from early in Tanya's writing, was that we all have a godly soul. And even more amazingly, our godly soul, our essence, actually is directly from Hashem's essence on his own. Phenomenal concept, very exciting, almost mind-boggling, but it was kind of especially mind-boggling for me because I'd never heard it before. And you might think, well, why would you have heard this before? I have a bit of a different trajectory than some other people. I grew up from, or Orthodox, though as parenthetically, I just want to say that our Rebbe didn't like those terms very much. In fact, he actually was quoted as saying that these differentiations we make between Orthodox and Conservative and Reform are really arbitrary. And in fact, to quote him, he said that specifically, let me get there, I'm not used to having notes, that all Jews share the same Torah given by the one and same God. But I grew up in that traditionally from family. Actually, I grew up in what we would commonly call a Misnagdisha family, which typically is a stream of religious Judaism that is non-Chassidic and in some cases anti-Chassidic. But suffice to say, I grew up Shomer Shabbos, I kept Shabbos, we kept the mitzvahs, I kept kosher, I tried to keep everything. In fact, I learned in yeshiva. And so it was kind of surprising to me when I first learned about this concept that we all possess a godly soul. What was kind of surprising to me is I'd never heard it before. And I thought I should have, but we'll get back to that. So I grew up from, I did everything I was supposed to do. I tried to do more than I thought I was supposed to do. But somewhere along the way, I started faltering. Not in what I was doing, and not even in my understanding of how you're supposed to do it and what you're supposed to do. I learned a lot about that. But my struggle was I was starting to wonder why I'm supposed to be doing it. And I didn't have an answer for that. I didn't give up on mitzvahs right away. But unfortunately, as things evolved, and ironically, though I've since learned perhaps a little bit why, the more mitzvahs I tried to do, it seemed like the further away I got from my essence, which was really not doing very well, and it led to a break. And so at the age of 20, I dropped everything. Now, just to put this in a bit of context, from the time of my bar mitzvah to the age of 20, I put on tefillin every morning, except for Shabbos, of course, never missed once. From the age of 20 to 50, if I put on tefillin once, I would be surprised. So a profound change in me, and what that resulted in, of course, was a profound conflict with my family. Because they were from, and I was not. And not only a profound conflict with my family, but a profound conflict with my whole community, who actually at that point tried to keep me a bit away from them because they were worried that I would be influencing potentially others. And obviously not in the way they wanted them to be influenced. But I could deal with their rejection. I didn't really care about that all that much. But the rejection and the experience with my own family was very difficult. My family are wonderful people. They're loving people, but they could not get their heads around, they could not grasp or in any way accept that I was no longer from. And when I would say to them, listen, I still feel very Jewish, they would say, this is not Jewish. They would say to me, actually, what a good Jew is, what a true Jew is someone who keeps the mitzvahs. Clearly, you're not doing that. And so we bickered back and forth, and our relationship survived, thankfully, but hobbled along for many years afterwards. I only learned much more recently that these mitzvahs that I had left behind, as essential and critical as they are, were still ultimately the levushim of my soul. In other words, the outer garments, the external things that I would put on to be a reflection of my internal, essential self, hopefully my godly self. But again, I didn't know anything about this. So all I did was say, I've had enough of religion. And especially the religion that rejected me. So, not interested. So you might wonder, how did I become a Chabad Chassid? I hadn't put on tefillin for 30 years. I had really no interest. And when I mean no interest, I mean no interest. So I guess I'd have to say that two things happened. The first was Susan and I had a daughter. And when Alicia was born, my wife said to me, we should find a synagogue. Because we're not really connected to anything. And we need a community. I said, okay, I'm good with that. Just one thing, nothing religious. Okay? I said, been there, done that, not interested. My wife's, she said, okay, let's look. So we looked around, we went Reform, we went Conservative, we went down the street here. Nothing really fit for us, nothing really felt where we belonged. And though my wife didn't want me to put in this part, it's the truth, so I'm going to say it. She said to me one day, she said, you know, when we go to shul with your family, the men and women sit separately. I think we're supposed to go someplace where we sit separately. And I've thanked her many times for that spiritual insight over the years, though I also sometimes wonder if she just really wanted to make sure she could get away from me on Shabbos morning. Either way, through a bunch of other journeys, which I won't get into, we ended up at the MTC and we found Chabad. So what did we find? Well, recall I said at the beginning that the Alter Rebbe teaches us in one of the earliest concepts that he shares in Tanya that all Jews have a godly soul. And one of the first things that I learned was all Jews had a godly soul. Not just from Jews, not just observant, Shomer Shabbos. That wasn't the thing. The thing was all Jews had a soul, a godly soul. And for me, a guy who, from the age of 20 on, was often called a goy, this was earth-shattering. And it was phenomenal. And it was exciting. And it was joyful. And it was emotionally incredible. It was a big party. And you know we can put on some pretty good parties. And so I got into the party. And I loved the party. And the party is wonderful. And the emotional, spiritual part is wonderful. But the problem with just that part is that you join the party. The party's a thing you join. When the party's over, it's over. So you get the high, you get the fun, you get the experience, you get the emotional lift. Then you go home. The party's over. You don't take the party with you. There's nothing to be taken with, and that's all there is. But it's even potentially more dangerous than that, if that's as far as you can go, which honestly, for a long time, that's as far as I went, is that there's the possibility you might find another party. Because if you're getting just the high, you may find another high. It might not be a Chabad high. It might not even be a Jewish high. So if all you're getting is this experience, this experiential event, and nothing comes with you afterwards, you may not get very far, and you may actually fall down again. So this is probably why, around this point, people in the shul started telling me, you need to start learning. And those of us that are here a lot, we hear this a lot. And I want to tell you something that, of course, this is your Tes Kislev or Chaf Kislev, and we said before people say, you say Gid Yontif, it's Rosh Hashanah for the Chassidim, and often what people will say is, and I'll quote it, L'shana toiva techastevu v'techatemu b'limud haChassidus u'v'darkei Chassidus, which basically translates, may be signed and sealed for a good year in the study of Chassidus and in the ways of Chassidus. And you can see that the study of Chassidus shows up first. And in fact, really the revolutionary change of the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus, evolving from the Baal Shem Tov's Chassidus, evolving from the Maggid of Mezrish's Chassidus, and different than all the other disciples of the Maggid, was the Alter Rebbe focused on this importance of intellect and study and learning. As a psychologist, fascinating to me to read in Tanya this notion that intellect has to actually have control over emotion. Because that's actually a fundamental concept of cognitive behavior therapy, which is a basic treatment in psychology. The Alter Rebbe made us understand that Chachma, Bina, Dat, Chabad, which is actually what Chabad stands for, which are facets of intellect, are the superior, or they have to sit on top of your emotional state. They have to have control. But it's more than that. Through study, through intellect, through learning, you not only control those emotions, you actually elevate those emotions. So those emotions are just not the emotions of the party, they become more profound emotions. And so not only do you get the learning and the intellect, you actually get a more profound sense of emotion as well. The Rambam said this as well when he talked about the fact that it's impossible actually to really be in love and awe of Hashem without a knowledge of Hashem. So this was the revolution of the Alter Rebbe. And in fact, for me, that's what I've learned what it means to be a Chabad Chassid, is actually to embrace this revolution of the Alter Rebbe. Because Chabad Chassidic teaches us some amazing and important things. It teaches us that our godly soul can refine our animal soul, that we can actually transform the animal soul, we can take the passions of the animal soul and actually direct them towards a love and service of Hashem. It teaches us about the oneness of God and the presence of God in every aspect of our lives, from a blade of grass to our own body. Hashem is everywhere. The light of Hashem enters us, something called Mamalei Kol Almim, but Hashem's light also surrounds us in a hidden way, but embraces us and secures us, something called Sovev Kol Almim. And most fundamentally, Chabad Chassidic teaches us that Hashem created everything for really one main goal and purpose. Hashem wants us to create a dwelling for Him on this earth. This is the lowliest of the worlds, but this is the world where Hashem wants to live. This is very, very interesting for me, coming from my background as well, because where I grew up, the focus was up there. And in fact, you wanted to probably keep away from too much that was going on down here. Chabad Chassidic teaches us the opposite. It teaches us the work is down here. You need to get involved down here. Our work is actually here. So Chabad Chassidic has taught me that our work is actually in this world. And each of us, me too, can and needs to be involved in this endeavor of making for Hashem a dwelling place right here on earth. Thank you very much.